Good morning to everyone. Kindly keep your mobile, before we start, kindly keep your mobile phones on silent, please. Our first speaker for the day is Dr. V.N. Prabhakar. A small introduction about Dr. Dr. V.N. Prabhakar is an associate professor of archaeology at the Indian Institute of Technology, Gandhinagar, since September 2020. Former Director, Exploration and Excavation, Institute of Archaeology at the Archaeological Survey of India between August 2018 and September 2020. He has conducted the exploration and excavation activities throughout the country and has headed the Institute of Archaeology, an academic wing of the ASI, imparting education in archaeology, heritage management, and museology. He has conducted excavations at Rupnagar, Punjab, and Karanpura, Rajasthan, both of Harappan culture, between 2011 and 2014. From 2009 to 2011, he was responsible for the exploration and excavation, conservation and preservation of 166 nationally essential heritage structures, including the World Heritage properties of Ajanta and Ellora caves. In 2013, he received his degree in Doctor of Philosophy from the Kurukshetra University, India, on the burial practices of the Harappans with special reference to Sanoli excavation. He has published around 40 research articles in journals, edited books, and conference proceedings. Now I invite Dr. Prabhakar to talk on the Harappan art as depicted on various stone media.
Good morning. My topic today is Harappan art as depicted on various stone mediums. But first of all, I would admit that speaking on the second day is always disadvantageous. Much have been covered yesterday. I was listening to all the talks yesterday through online mode, and I think nothing was left for us today. I mean, much more has been told. Still, I mean, I would like to make some contributions, maybe a little bit of thoughts. What I think maybe it's also there in the published literature, but still, I want to bring out some important aspects. So first of all, I would like to thank my guru, my mentor, Professor R.S. Bisht, who is a guest professor IIT GN and a former joint DG ASI, my institute IIT Gandhinagar, my parent institution Archaeological Survey of India, and I thank C.P. Ramaswamy Institute of Indological Research for inviting me to present here, and also all the scholars, because this presentation would not be possible without the contribution of a lot of scholars who have worked for nearly 100 years, because in September 1924, the discovery of Harappan civilization was announced by Sir John Marshall, and immediately 1 week later, scholars working in West Asia, they have brought to light the connections between Harappan civilization and the Mesopotamian civilization, and then the date also emerged because of this contribution. So since then, we have traveled a lot. Actually, if we look into the history of Harappan archaeology, it starts somewhere around 1826, the earliest visit to Harappa by Charles Mason, then by Alexander Burness, then Alexander Cunningham, who visited the site of Harappa on 3 occasions. And a lot of contributions have been made, many different scholars, many different explorers. But the excavation started in 1921, in January 1921 at Harappa, and 22 at Mohenjo-daro, and in 24 it was announced. So it took nearly 3 years to kind of correlate the evidences coming from these 2 sites, and they found that they belong to the same culture. So since then, several sites have been discovered, excavated, and particularly after the independence 1947, there were several investigations both in India, Pakistan, Oman, Bahrain, Afghanistan, which have really contributed a lot in understanding the Harappan civilization. So if you look into the picture in 1947, we had only one site, that is Rangpur on the Indian side, and all the known Harappan sites, they went to Pakistan. So it was the renewed efforts of a lot of archaeologists of ASI, State Department of Archaeology, universities like MS University, Deccan College, MD University, Rohtak, and several other institutions who contributed a lot in exploring different parts of the northwestern part of India, Gujarat, and brought to light a large number of Harappan sites. Similarly, on the Pakistan side, several missions were working. French archaeological mission to Pakistan, German archaeological mission, Italian archaeological mission, and the Harappa archaeological research project at Harappa. So they did a lot of contribution, and now we have a very good understanding of the chronology, the development, and various other aspects. So if we look into the chronology here, I mean, our chronology is completely comparable with the other prominent civilizations like the Mesopotamian and the Egyptian. And all the green areas, it represents the early food producing era. I mean, everywhere the trajectory was same. They were settling along the river plains basins. They were domesticating plants and animals. Initially, they were dependent upon the wild animals and wild cereals, but slowly they gained knowledge about the domestication of plants and animals. Then they started to settle down. The settled way of human life, it contributed a lot. So they started to build villages, later on towns, bigger towns, and ultimately they embarked into the larger cities. So that is the urbanism. When they brought in certain features for the management of an urban setup, or what we call, or what the anthropologists call as a state level society. The emergence of complex state level society, it also culminated in the combination of various other technologies. That was the defining factor, and that's what we should define as a civilization. So when we talk about civilization, it is the state level society, not the Neolithic culture or the regional Chalcolithic cultures. So we have this long trajectory of from starting around 7500 BC here in Mehergarh to the regional Chalcolithic era, which is known as the regionalization era. We have several regional cultures which are also termed as early Harappan cultures, right? So from 2600 BC onwards, approximately, all these regional cultures, they were integrated maybe due to some common objectives, harnessing the raw material resources available all over the greater Indus plains. So that's how the integration took place, and it was the urban era at that particular point of time. So this lasted for around 700 years, 2600 to 1900 years, and recent climatic studies, it has clearly demonstrated that climate was a major factor in the transformation, not the decline. Harappan civilization or the culture, it did not decline, it transformed from an urban setup into a rural setup around 1900 BCE, but it started somewhere 200 years earlier, around 2100 BCE, what we call it as the Meghalayan age. From the time period, there was a climatic change in the climatic regime. So it altered the monsoon climatic patterns and also the rainfall patterns, and ultimately it took nearly 250 years to ultimately it triggered the transformation. But there was another thing happening in the Gagar Hakra plains, which is identified with river Saraswati. There, the Satluj river system, it was captured by the Indus river system, and Satluj abandoned the channel of Saraswati and joined the Bias river system, and that's how large contribution of perennial water into the Saraswati system was also lost. So that was another reason, and for this we have a clear-cut indication of shifting of settlements from the Gagar Hakra plains to the upstream. They are now moving upstream, and they are crossing the Yamuna and also settling down in the Ganga Yamuna Doab. So this is the picture, and after 1900 BCE, again local cultures emerge, basically triggered by the Harappan transformation, and also largely influenced by them. If you look into the material culture, the kind of symmetry, the kind of ceramics and the kind of material culture, it had a lot of continuities from the Harappan culture. And Sanoli in this context it represents one of the beautiful evidence of the transformation from the Harappan culture, be it in the burial customs, the ceramic forms and traditions, the jewelry, the technology, the faience technology, all of them had its origin in the Harappan culture. So this is the nutshell in understanding this long drawn process of human evolution in this part of the Indus plains, and it is more or less contemporary with the Mesopotamian, Sumerian, particularly early dynastic, third Akkadian, then old Babylonian, Isin Larsa period. That is the time periods of Mesopotamia where the Harappans were contemporary and they were also trading with them. Similarly, in the on the Egyptian side, they were contemporary to the early dynastic and also to the old kingdom. This is the time period, and one particular region which has emerged very important is this Oman Peninsula. Oman Peninsula, particularly the Umayyad period, it is contemporaneous. It is the Bronze Age period of Oman Peninsula, and there we see extensive contacts between the Harappans and the Oman Peninsula. Also, they were trading. They were going to the Mesopotamian region, and they were also participating in the long distance trade. So, coming to this topic here, I mean, what is art? I mean, art is completely it varies from person to person. I mean, what I describe as an art may not be an art for you. I mean, it is completely as an individual's perspectives. I mean, some of the art forms may be very beautiful for me, some may dislike, others may dislike. But it is basically a human expression. I mean, whatever form it may be in the form of a sculpture, painting, or any craft activity. They might be forming any jewelry. There they give their ingenuity. I mean, they think, they kind of experiment, and also they experiment on various materials. So we see a long drawn process of experimentation starting in the Mehergarh region, where they have experimented on various mediums, being in the plastic art of terracotta, stone like steatite, agate, carnelian, turquoise, metals like copper, and various other materials. They have experimented a lot. So the human artistic expressions might date back to even 1 lakh years before, but we see definite evidence in the form of cave paintings from the European region belonging to the Upper Paleolithic time period, basically from Lashkov. They are the murals, wall paintings, but we also have many plastic arts. They have also made terracottas of human lion, or Venus figurines made of various ivory and other mediums. So it's a kind of a time period where they are seeing themselves, and they are also experimenting on various mediums. In the Indian context, in the rock art, we have only in the form of Bhimbetka, which doesn't have a very long antiquity. I mean, it is antiquity-wise, it may not be comparable to the European examples, but there is an expression of art. I mean, there is an expression of thought process. There is an expression of ritual practices, what they are observing in the environment. That's what it is helping them to create certain artistic forms. Plastic arts, it started much later, but cultural wise, it started in the Neolithic time period at Mehergarh. But if we look into the craft activities, we have the earliest evidence from the Jwalapuram region. Professor Ravi Korisatter's excavation at Jwalapuram, it has yielded beads made of bone and limestone, datable to 35,000 years back. And if we go to Sri Lanka, we have a contemporary culture there where they also manufactured beads more or less of the same time period. So even in the Indian subcontinent, people were trying to make a lot of artistic objects, be it in different medium, different forms, be it in jewelry or various other forms. But slowly it gained importance, and I think most scholars feel when they were free from all kind of daily routines like hunting and gathering, they have to be always occupied with some sort of activity. But when they were free, when they were domesticating the plants and animals, most part of the year they were completely free, then they might have also thought of creating certain artistic forms. That's how we see the Mehergarh evidences also in the form. Also, we also have evidence for certain ritualistic purposes. I mean, that we see in the Mehergarh evidence. So artistic thing, it is also a skill. It might have been transmitted from generation to generation. It might have been initially developed by a certain group of people, but later on when they mastered it, they might have transmitted from generation to generation, and also a lot of practice might have required. It's not very simple. Certain artistic forms, it wasn't very simple. They might have practiced through generation to generations. So coming to Mehergarh, Mehergarh is one such a settlement where we have evidence for all kind of activities, be it craft activity, be it the domestication of plants and animals. Particularly the Indian Bos indicus, the water buffalo was domesticated here, and the zebu cattle, they were domesticated here. So we have evidence of various first beginnings at Mehergarh. We also see the rituals of applying red ochre on the dead body, or even while living also they might have applied the red ochre. We see the mortars with red ochre still preserved. The pounder is still there. They have crushed the hematite nodules, and they might have applied them over their body, maybe performing certain rituals. But on the burials, they have found the remains of red ochre. So they also had a very good understanding of or thought process of a life after death. So they were taking along with them sheep and goats. You can see the sheep and goats, they are buried along with the female individual here, and they are placed in a typical posture. It is known as the fetal position, as though they are in a womb. I mean, this is another belief that they want the dead individual again to be reborn, right? So that's why they are giving this posture, and along with them they are also putting lot of jewelry. So you can see the jewelry here, some neck ornaments, from hair ornaments. So all of them from this particular burial, they have been depicted here. So what they indicate ornaments made from different raw materials which are not available locally. The shells, the turquoise, the lapis lazuli, this is lapis lazuli, this is turquoise, the shells, steatite, they are not available local. They are coming either from 500, 600 kilometers away, 1500 kilometers away. So this is a clear indication of long distance trade. In those times, I mean, in those times of 8th millennium, 7000 BCE onwards, they were engaged in long distances trade, and they were getting the raw materials, maybe finished artifacts from different regions, particularly Turbinella pyrum from the Karachi coast, then one shell from the Makran coast known as the Engina mendicaria, and mother of pearl from Oman, and also turquoise from Central Asia, and lapis lazuli from Afghanistan. So you can imagine, I mean, in those early days, nearly 9,000 years back, they were able to understand the raw material provenance. They might have been in contact with communities living very close to these raw material resources, because it wasn't humanly possible from them to travel to those places and procure them. They had only contacts, either direct or indirect, because there are various theories of how a trade contact can be established. It can be either direct, it can be through a middleman. So there are various modes of establishing a trade contact, and Mehergarh people, they might have established the trade contact either through middlemen, because it is not possible for them to travel. In particular, the shell coming from Karachi and the Kutch coast, I mean, what were the contemporary population without any human group, how they could have procured the raw materials from there or finished products from there? In this context, investigations in Pakistan by Paolo Biaggi, an Italian scholar, from 2004 onwards, it has brought to light a lot of shell midden sites. Shell midden sites, he terms them as Neolithic hunter-gatherers. I term them as simple hunter-gatherers, because we also have found similar evidences from Kadir Island, where Dholavira is located. We have found 4 locations where shell middens are located, datable to the 7th millennium BP. So all these evidences clearly indicate there were local populations existing on the coastal region of Karachi as well as Kutch, and they were the people who are procuring these raw materials, particularly Turbinella pyrum and also agate carnelian from Gujarat, and providing to the Mehergarh people. Coming to the artistic forms, I mean, Mehergarh has very remarkable specimen. I mean, one is this mother of pearl human representation, which was found in one of the burials, and the other very unique simple objects, like triangular objects. You can see this is a triangular object, and simple standing objects. And some objects have some delineation. So these are the earliest figurines which appear from the Neolithic context onwards. And Catherine Yarridge, who has done an excellent study of the evolution of this particular artistic form, they have traced, starting from the simple triangular representations, which was most probably a female representation, and made of stone also. This one is made of stone. Some in terracotta, some in stone, and they were representing the human forms. Some have certain jewelry on them, some have anatomical features, and some also have depiction of snakes. I mean, if you look closely, there is a snake depiction on this a particular figurine. And on a stone figurine, they have depicted a red ochre line representing a stone. So all this indicates not only plastic art forms, but also certain ritual meanings. I mean, why they should depict a snake on a human representation? So it has certain inherent meaning which we may not understand, because we are separated very far away from that time period. We may not understand the exact meaning, but we may infer certain meanings to them. And here is the depiction of the red lines depicting a snake. And very interestingly, two objects, they are very, very important. Again, they represent human forms, but here there are holes through and through. And the French team, they have used this kind of vegetal sticks to pierce them, and it goes through and through. There is no break in between. It may be some kind of a black magic which even we might have heard about in the modern times. Like certain black magic is performed using the human forms. In any form they perform, they pierce the humans, maybe to relieve them of some pains. So this could be one of the earliest cult practices. So not only the human figurines, they were manufactured as an artistic expression, they could have been used for this kind of performance of rituals, cult practices, for which we see Mehergad as one of the earliest evidence. So this is the figurine with that pierce marks. And as I told you, we see the continuous evolution, starting from the period 1, that is Neolithic, to period 7b, that is the late Chalcolithic, coinciding with the emergence of the Harappan civilization. You can see the gradual evolution from a simple figurine to an elaborately decorated headdress, ornaments, and later on culminating in these kind of figurines, which we called as the Zob figurines. Zob figurines, they have this typical huge depictions, and from here we see clear-cut variations of the male and the female figurines, and also application of certain paintings on the figurines, clearly indicating the hair color, even the vermilion color, and also the dress, all these kind of things. So it's a completely evolved form. So we have seen an evolution of nearly 8,000 years, maybe 7,000 years, and culminating in the actual human representation. And this is the very basis of Harappan culture. You might have heard about the so-called mother goddess of the Harappan civilization. Where did it come from? It did not evolve suddenly, and the Harappans did not acquire the expertise suddenly. This is the background. This is the background going on for nearly 4,500 years, 4,000, 5,000 years, and the Harappans, they also gained from this experience. Similarly, in all other activities, I mean, if you look at the figurines closely, this figurine particularly, if you see this figurine, this might have led to the later period female figurines with elaborate headdress and jewelry, and we can reconstruct the kind of hairstyles, the turban styles, the dress, ornaments, everything from these figurines, because they are actually representing the humans at that particular time period. So we can clearly see the Afghan turban here. I mean, you might have seen this turban, which is very famous in the Pashtun area of Pakistan and Afghanistan. So it goes much, much earlier. So particularly for the males. And the males, they also had a different style of hairstyle when compared to the females. So this is how we can see. And coming once more to the ritualistic importance. I mean, I told earlier that they were applying red ochre all over the body. But what is the meaning of placing this triangular object? The lady, she is holding like this, right? So when she was placed in the burial, the triangular terracotta object was placed in front of her. So what is the significance? I mean, we have seen that this triangular terracotta object is a female representation, and the dead bodies, they were placed in a fetal position. Most probably, they believed that they should reborn again. And placing this one again attests the ritualistic importance that we actually pray that you should come back again. Maybe that could be the inner meaning, but we may not establish the exact meaning. But this is very, very interesting. The objects, they were not made only for artistic expressions. They were made with some inner purpose, interior purpose, which we may never able to understand. We can understand the context, we can understand the forms and shapes, but we may not understand the inner meaning. So with this background, coming to the Harappan era, this is before 1947, this is after 1947. So we have transformed the entire understanding of the Harappan civilization. Lots and lots of sites have been discovered in Gujarat, Sindh, Cholistan, Punjab, Haryana, Ganga, Yamuna, Doab, and now we have a very beautiful settlement hierarchy. With this settlement hierarchy, again the artistic forms changes. I mean, with the emergence of urban life, naturally the needs of the elites, it completely changes. The elites, they require a different form of jewelry, they require a different form of maybe textile forms. So all these things changes when the complex state level society emerges. So that's how this kind of hierarchy, when we see cities having more than 100 hectares, that can be categorized as the largest cities. And we have 6 largest cities. Mohenjo-daro is the largest, followed by maybe Lakhanjadaro, Harappa, Rakhigadi, then Ganveriwala and Dholavira. This is the order, right? I mean, Mohenjo-daro is a city par excellence. I mean, the river Indus was flowing west of the city. Now it is flowing to the east of the city. So it has inundated a vast portion of the city itself. The remains are buried beneath nearly 2 to 6 meters of silt. Michael Janssen, who has done an excellent survey during the 1980s, he has even reported habitations 1 kilometer away from the present day remains. So it's not a very small city as projected by a few. It is a city par excellence, and it is the largest. Maybe its size may go beyond 600, 700 hectares, and equivalent to many of the Mesopotamian cities. So other cities, they follow Mohenjo-daro. And there is one more city, it has recently come into prominence, that is known as Lakhanjadaro. Lakhanjadaro, it is located in the modern day Sakkar town, and the remains, they also are equivalent to the size of Mohenjo-daro. So we have this idea of settlement hierarchy, we have this better chronology. We also have a more or less a kind of understanding about what kind of social organization might have been. It was not a state society like Mesopotamia and Mesopotamia or the Egyptian civilization, but there could have been city states. I mean, if we look into the kind of arguments put forth by different scholars like Gregory Posel, Jonathan Markenoyer, and various other scholars, they agree that it could have been a very good example of a city state. And larger cities like Mohenjo-daro, Dholavira, they might have administered a large hinterland of maybe 150,000 to 170,000 square kilometers. So this could be the scenario. I mean, all of them, but they were integrated ideologically, they were integrated material cultural wise. So that's why we see them as a whole. But it is not a whole actually. They had the regional variations. If you look into the material culture, they had regional variations, and definitely they might have been speaking different dialects. They might not have spoken the same common language. They could have spoken a different dialect. So Dholavira, it's one such city where we have a very good evidence of growth from around 3300 BCE, continuing up to 1450 BCE. And very recently, it was inscribed in the World Heritage list in 2021. We have excellently preserved architecture here. We also have a very good specimen of artistic forms, particularly on stone, on which I would be speaking about. So there are various mediums. I mean, various mediums of stones in the Harappan culture, like particularly sculptures. I mean, very few sculptures, maybe 10 sculptures that have come into our knowledge. They were made of either limestone, sandstone, or one particular stone reported as grey stone. So these stone figures, they are broken. I mean, this is another enigmatic features. Why they should be broken? Either the head is broken or the lower part is broken and they were dumped. It is not found in the primary condition. So something was happening to them. Like this so-called priest king. The lower part of the priest king is broken. And they were all shown in a seated posture, like comparable to the Lalitasana of modern day sculptures, like the deities, they are showed one leg drawn upwards and one leg cross legged. So it is more or less like a relaxed position of sitting. Maybe they were sitting on a couch and maybe listening to some courtly matters or maybe attending some important rituals. So they were shown in a very relaxed position and cross legged, right? And they were males only, no female figurines, clearly indicating the kind of patriarchal society. And evidence of cloak. If you see the figure here, there's a cloak. Right shoulder is exposed and left one is covered, and it is very elaborately inlaid. If you look into the cloak, it has this trefoil pattern, and if you look closely, there are nail marks. You can see the nail marks. Originally, this sculpture would have been beautified with golden inlays. Maybe gold leaves might have been put and they were nailed, and which was removed later on. And there are several other ornaments. If you look into the head ornament, I will come to that later, and they are very rare. Only from Mohenjo-daro and one specimen from Dholavira. We have one crude stone sculpture very similar of the seated posture from Dholavira, and particularly the Sindh region. I mean, if we speak of Mohenjo-daro and Dholavira cannot be separated from the Sindh region. It is an extension of the Sindh region, and maybe this particular cult or giving importance to a kind of individuals with these kind of depictions, it was vogue in only the Sindh region, not in Harappa, not in Rakhigarhi, not anywhere else. So these are also a very good evidence of their sophistication in their workmanship. If you look into the each and every feature, they have been very beautifully depicted. And we also see many architectural members. Architectural members, initially they were reported from Mohenjo-daro, they were identified as ring stones. They were not found in their original context, they were found in a secondary context, they were identified as ring stones, and there are some interpretations how these composite pillars might have also been used. They have put one above another these ring stones, and it could have been a composite element also. This kind of interpretations were made, but they were not found in a original context. When Dholavira was excavated in 1990s, then only they could know that these stones, they were actually put as an architectural member in prominent buildings like gateways, and they might have supported a wooden pillar, and wooden pillar was supporting the roof. And interestingly, these kind of pillar members, they are found only from Harappa, Mohenjo-daro and Dholavira, nowhere else. So these are elite areas, or maybe specifically reserved for elites who are very important in administering the localities. And Dholavira, because of this in situ condition, we have come to know its importance and context in a better manner. And in particular, the quarry site very close to Dholavira, 3.5 kilometers to the northeast of Dholavira, it clearly indicated how they were quarried, roughened there, and brought to the city for complete finishing. And they might have used even a lathe turned feature to give the final polish and finishing. So this is how the so-called priest king was discovered from the DK area from Mohenjo-daro. This is one archival image from the ASI. You can see one workman, he is lifting the so-called priest king and showing it to the maybe supervisor. We don't know his name. And this is how excavations were carried out during the 1920s. So if we look closely, this is the front and the rear. This is a clear image. You can see the trefoil pattern and also the nail marks and also the headband. Headband basically consisting of a gold fillet and a central eye bead. Actually, it's a gold bead with a central stated bead. And these are different views of the same figure. And this is the reconstruction done by Janssen. It's a different Janssen, how the sculpture would have looked like, because the bottom one is broken. But how we can say this? I mean, how one can definitely say? I mean, there is another evidence of a similar image from Mohenjo-daro which gives a clear-cut indication. So this is another
reconstruction by CPRIIR, who was given the painted features also. This is an imagination how it could have been looked like, but you can see the golden fillet. And very interestingly, there are grooves below the ears, and there is a flat surface on the back of the head. This was told to me by Professor Mark Kenoyer when he looked this object very closely. There are grooves underneath the ear, and it's a flat surface on the back so that they can fit some crown element above their head. So there was an extra fitting that could have been given. It could have been a golden crown or maybe some decoration, but we may not know that exactly. But this is very interesting if we look into these kind of things. The lower portion was reconstructed using this sculpture. This sculpture again from Mohenjo-daro. The head is broken here, but the lower one is complete. So combining these two, one can clearly say this is the posture, cross-legged, and right one is cross-legged and left one is raised upwards, and that's how this sculpture might have been represented in a complete form. And two are from Mohenjo-daro, similar one from Dholavira. Again, head broken, thrown away from its original location. It was found in a debris in the east gate. So why they were doing this? Why they were damaging? They have damaged both the images from Mohenjo-daro. They have also broken the image from Dholavira, and this was happening towards the end of the Harappan phase. It was not happening towards the beginning, but the end of the Harappan phase. Maybe certain ideological changes they are happening. They are no longer respecting a certain clan or a ethnic group who are controlling the entire civilization or the particular regional areas. So they might have, wanted a change. That's how they were removing these sculptures. Maybe they were represented in some prominent places and they were throwing it away. This could be one interpretation. There could be any other interpretation also. I'm not telling this is the only interpretation, but ideological beliefs, it's the basis. It's the basis of some breakage. It's the basis of throwing away certain objects into a dump. So this could be the basis, but the interpretation can be more. So this is on one slide. You can compare the three images, right? You can very well compare these two images because the lower one is preserved here, and this is the upper one from Mohenjo-daro. Are they the isolated ones? No. There are similar representations from outside. This slide is due to Professor Massimo Vidale. So we have also limestone tarso from Shere-Shokte, Iran, Helmand civilization, and this is the reconstruction of that one. The posture is same. What does this indicate? We now can discuss on a long distance ideological transmission, because at Shere-Shokta we already see many Harappan elements present. The terracotta cakes, triangular terracotta cakes. We have the steatite disc beads. We have the shell inlays. Several Harappan features are represented at Shere-Shokta. It can be a kind of relation which the Harappans, they might have gone there, they might have settled there, or they might have further trade relations. This could be one interpretation based on these kind of sculptures. And one more head what we see is from Mundigak. We cannot make much about from this figure, but there is also a practice of making these kind of stone statues. Coming to the ornaments, what kind of ornaments they were wearing? Again, it is only restricted to the elites. Because if you see this head ornament, there's a gold fillet, central eye bead, that is a gold disc with a steatite. So this one is found from Harappa, complete one, gold eye bead with this steatite thing found from Harappa, and a fillet. If you attach the fillet, it can be a very good headband. And that was the typical ornament of the so-called priest king. And Dholavira, they have done the same thing. They have done in copper, not gold, but there is again a steatite bead at the center. So, and also they have done it in steatite eye bead. There's a central one. They might have put a stone here. So these kind of ornaments they might have been particularly reserved for this kind of elites. So we have some more stone heads coming from different areas of Mohenjo-daro, particularly Mohenjo-daro, as I told, it's a site par excellence. Why you get certain public architecture, artistic forms, certain material culture, it is not found elsewhere, only at Mohenjo-daro. It means the site, the importance of the site. If you look to the figures again, their eyes are represented with some other inlays. It's again very much different. These are the various forms, and you can see the head rays and how they have been tied as a bun as the at the back. So different hairdos also we can see, and it may also indicate the different groups. From among these groups, certain elites might have emerged. It's not that only one particular family or one particular ethnic group might have dominated. There could have been different ethnic groups. That's why they are represented with different decorations and different ornaments. These are two more figures. One is very famous with the sockets for attaching the hand also. Another is as a dancing figure. Again, this one is from without any context, without any stratigraphical context. So it's very difficult to assign any time period, but it is normally reported from Harappa. If you look into other stone objects, there are many. I mean, if you look into the stone sculptures, there are representation of a ram, representation of seated figure, and also large pillars which were also standing lingas, right? Particularly from Dholavira, you can see the clear-cut depiction of a linga here. It's a banded limestone, and there are broken ones also. The bottom one is broken. The roughened part, it clearly indicated it was buried below the earth. And they were also manufacturing very beautiful ornaments, very small. It's hardly 1 centimeter, like this cornelian bull, and there is a mongoose. And they were also using the local clay to manufacture this kind of coal jars, surma. I mean, for this coal, they are making hardly 1 inch high jars, very small, right? So it's a miniature art as well as maybe the stone sculptures. It may hardly go to 1.5 foot, right? It was not monumental, but this was clearly monumental, 1.5, 1.8 meters in height. So they have spent a lot of energy, and there are two more standing pillars in Dholavira, which I feel they are standing lingas, but other scholars, they feel it's not linga. So I feel again they are, because the top portion is clearly indicating them as a linga. Next, coming to the pillar elements. The pillar elements are the hallmark of Harappan civilization at Dholavira. They were manufactured there, they were quarried there, because the banded limestone, it is available in the Khadir island only. These kind of banded limestones, they were preserving them for the pillar elements, the square base, the biconcave, then the biconvex ones, and over that came the wooden pillars. We have miniature representation of the composite pillar elements also at Dholavira. You can see a wavy element here and biconvex one placed one above the another. It's a shell composite pillar element. You can see this is the size, hardly 10 to 15 centimeters, but it's a very beautiful representation of what could be the probable pillar element during the Harappan time period. And the wavy element, it was actually found at Harappa. You can see 3 pillar elements were found by a small excavation by Professor Mark, and they were fitting one above the another perfectly. And this is a buff limestone. It is not from Dholavira. It is from the Jaisalmer region. So they were procuring these pillar elements from many different areas, and they were using it for architectural elements. And a beautiful scientific study conducted by Randall Law, it clearly proves scientifically that the banded limestones, they were quarried at Dholavira, carried to Mohenjo-daro, partly through the sea route and partly through the land route, or completely through the river route, connecting the Rann of Kutch through the Indus. So coming to the jewelry, and they were again par excellence. I mean, they were creating vast kind of jewelry. This is one particular kind of a jewelry known as the etched cornelian beads, bleached cornelian beads. They call it in different manners, but I call it decorated cornelian beads because you see, it's a decoration. I mean, the Harappans did not think that they are going to bleach the bead. They are going to etch the bead. They were only decorating the bead, and there are many different kind of depictions from single eye to double eye, triple eye, multiple double eye, multiple triple eye, and also these kind of complex forms. And they were very popular, and they were only restricted to the elites. From the site of Dholavira, I have documented all the decorated cornelian beads. They are only 100, 110 in number, not beyond that. From this vast city, imagine only 100 or 110 beads have come out. This is another category known as the long barrel cylindrical beads. They go even up to 4 inches, 5 inches in length. Very complex technology was involved in manufacturing the beads, and ultimately they formed a waistband for the ladies. This was a ladies ornament. It was not meant for male. It was a ladies ornament. Waistband they were wearing on the waist. You can very well see it in the figurine here, the terracotta figurines from Mohenjo-daro, which clearly indicate the composite ones. Only 3 complete specimens have been found so far, one from Harappa, one from Mohenjo-daro, and one from Allahabad. This is from the Allahabad hoard. It's a complete hoard consisting of this agate cornelian jewelry, silver jewelry, and gold jewelry, kept in a very small pot, and it was discovered. There are other beautiful ornaments. I mean, they have spent maybe days together to identifying a particular stone with a particular kind of band. They're polishing it, they're cutting it in such an angle so that the bands can be depicted in a particular angle. So the agate cornelian beads, they are amazing ornaments, and along with various other stones like this kind of green color Vesuvanite, they have produced very good composite beads. This was the one I was telling. So if you cut across the stone like this, you may not get this pattern. So one needs to plan what is the final product. So when they select the raw material, they also decide in which pattern this stone has to be cut so that the bands can be beautifully depicted. So this is how they were planning. And the seal art, I mean, they were perfect. I mean, they were ranging from 1.5 centimeter square, very small. This one is 1.5 centimeter square. This is a very small seal found from my excavation at Karanpura. And there are bigger ones, 2.5 to 3 centimeter square also. But they are excellent specimen because they were carved using a copper bronze tip tool. Experimental studies by Greg Jamieson, it has clearly demonstrated how they were using a very hard bronze tip on a copper tool. They were used for engraving them to such a perfection that they completely utilize the lesser space available for them to carve such beautiful specimen of art. You can see how they can do this. I mean, it is as though like a printing job, right? Or a machine laser cut engraving. This is not possible. I mean, even if you give it to a modern day jeweler, he may not reproduce that. But the Harappans, through practice, I mean, this is what I told you at the beginning, how the art evolves and the perfection is achieved through practice. So this is the very good example. So we also have various ritualistic and mythological scenes also depicted. These are 2 particular seals I wanted to show. One from Mohenjo-daro. This is very famous, reported by, interpreted by Martha Ameri as a divine adoration seal because of the deity standing inside a people tree, a person kneeling in front of that, and a Markor is standing here. A similar scene is depicted on a seal from Dholavira with slight modifications, but the scene is same. So we find this mythological scene depicted on seals from Dholavira, Mohenjo-daro, and Harappa. Again, only these 3 cities, nowhere else. And from Dholavira, we have very beautiful stone bowls. I mean, with the locally available fossiliferous limestone and also sandstone and banded limestone, they have produced these kind of very good bowls. Again, these were lathe tanned. I mean, it was not possible using with only the hand. So with all these kind of background and evidence, if we look at the trade activities of the Harappans, they were going as far as Mesopotamia. I mean, evidences have been found in cities in Mesopotamia and also several regions in the Oman Peninsula and the Bahrain region. So scholars have worked and they have documented what kind of specimen have been found. This is the complete reference given by Posel in 1996 in his article. You can see carnelian, lapis lazuli, pearl, and many different kind of woods. Because the Mesopotamians, they didn't have timber in the river plains, right? It was only the plains. They have to travel to the Zagros mountains or some other region to get some timber. But when the Harappans, they were arriving there with ships, with timber, it was attracted. They were attracted towards the kind of workmanship. So that's why they make special reference. And these are the ornaments found from the royal burials. You can see the variety of ornaments, in particular these long barrel cylindrical beads and the decorated cornelian beads. They are all from the Harappan region. So if we plot the Harappan artistic craftsmanship, it went as far as Greece. One site in Egypt, Abydos, Harappans did not have direct contact with Egypt. I mean, please don't believe those stories. They didn't have any direct contact. They had only direct contact with the southern Mesopotamian sites, not even the northern Mesopotamian sites. All these objects which they are found in faraway places, they are secondary trade carried out by the Mesopotamians. So they were manufactured from Dholavira. I mean, if you look at the raw material resources from Dholavira, we have excellent evidence of craft activities at Dholavira. The scientific investigations at Dholavira clearly indicate they came from three different agate cornelian sources. One is Ratanpura, second is Mardak Bait, and another is Kandik near Surkotada. So we have this excellent evidence of how the beads were actually manufactured, and we have also carried out various studies to understand the complete bead manufacturing technique. So this is how the Harappans mastered the skill. They produced the beads for their home consumption, then they also exported it to Mesopotamia. Because of their artistic superiority, because of the kind of craftsmanship which was not available anywhere in that particular point of time period. And this is the transformation after 1900 BC. They were transformed into rural cultures again. They abandoned the urban settlements and adopted a rural way of lifestyle. Thank you. Fillet. Yeah.
I was sent a picture of a tablet, a small tablet from Nepal, which was identified by Oxford Authentication 2000 BC, which would be between the late Harappan and the historical period. It was a small scene of a man on a chariot holding 4 horses, another man at the back pointing in one direction, and the quiver, 2 quivers of arrows. I identified it as Krishna and Arjuna for the simple reason that Arjuna is the only one who is known to have had 4 horses in the Kurukshetra war. But what was interesting is that both of them had these fillets with something round. I mean, it was terracotta, so there was no stone. So what could that be? I mean, it's not a crown. Why would they just wear kind of a patti around their forehead?
Yeah, I mean, if we look into the Harappan context, at least it was an elite decorative element. That's all I can say, because we have very good evidence from the contextual evidence from Harappa. It was restricted only to certain individuals, and certain depictions, it clearly indicate that could be belonging to elite. Identity also, definitely. Because you see, if somebody comes wearing that one, is definitely identified, maybe he is some sort of an important individual. Maybe there could have been continuity, I don't know. I mean, that figure in, without context, it is very difficult to say that, but There could be continuity also, who knows. Okay.
Any more question?
Thank you, Dr. Prabhakar. This was thought-provoking lecture. And two things I want to bring your knowledge. You showed a belt, carnelian belt. You said one is from Harappa, two are from Mohenjo-daro, one is with us in National.
Complete one, I told complete.
Complete, three. One Alahadino, one with us in Nation Museum, one in Pakistan. Three. So complete, nothing from, Harappa is very poor as far as jewelry is concerned. Second thing, which you said about the gentleman from America who did the stone,
Who was the gentleman?
Mark Caneva student.
Randall.
Bala. At that time, we were not knowing the this area, this Khanak area, Aravali area, and this was first time accepted by BHU team, R.N. Singh. So they also have steatite, hole in the Khanak area, Aravali area, and your Karnapura is very close, very not far away from this Aravali. So Aravali could be another source instead for this steatite.
Stated there could be many sources. Randall himself has told
you
at least four to five stated sources.
Let me complete. So you are saying 5,000 kilometer.
No, I never told 5,000 kilometers.
4,000, 5,000. So we have at Aravali in
1,000 kilometers.
Haryana and Rajasthan border. Another interesting thing you said, transformation at Sanoli. Transformation at Sanoli. Sanoli, we have, you excavated there, you are the best person with the D.V. Sharma, that Manjul is excavating. There you have late Harappan, you said late Harappan earlier to me. Harappan is there, but that is not transformation from Harappan to copper hold or OCP. This is fusion.
I never told it's a transformation to OCP or copper hold. No, not at all.
So, okay.
It's a late Harappan culture of the Bada phase. Clear, that's it. Beyond that, there is no OCP there. There is no copper hold here. There is one antenna sword. It doesn't make it as a copper hold culture, right? And there is no OCP pottery there. It is complete misinformation spread by a few archaeologists. There is no OCP at all there. It is a hallmark late Harappan ceramics of the Bada phase.
Okay, then all right.
So only straight questions, no discussions, please. You have your discussion during the tea times.
No discussion.
Okay, only straight question. Sir, please wait.
See, I want to know about the Nausharo three-headed figure found. Three-headed figure found at Nausharo.
Okay.
That is the tiger, bovine and elephant. Then again, elephant toys or heads have been found at the different places of Harappan and Mohenjo. So what is your interpretation?
I don't have nothing to say because I concentrated mostly on the stone objects here. Just I showed the terracotta objects to indicate the kind of evolution starting from most common, most primitive to an elaborated one. There could be different meanings attached to these kind of artistic forms. Again, I'm stressing the point that what you view may be different, I view may be different, right? It's all thought process and we cannot connect them because it's very remote.
So there is a word called Saurashtra in your map. Are they any connection to Tanjavur or Saurashtra?
Saurashtra, it's in Gujarat. Maybe some people they have migrated from Saurashtra and settled in Tamil Nadu, but Saurashtra is in Gujarat. It is also known as Sorat. That's why we call it one particular complex as Sorat Harappan. You see, negative evidence may not indicate that no evidence at all, right? Negative evidence also indicate there could have been certain elements which could have come here and which is not found in archaeological material culture. We need to devise certain methodologies so that we can retrieve them. But there are certain influences, cylinder seals. We have specimen of cylinder seals from Mohenjo-daro and Kalibanga and Rakhigadi, which are definitely influence of the Mesopotamian trade. We have certain elements which were influenced by the Mesopotamian trade. I mean, we have them in the Mohenjo-daro context. There could have been, definitely.
Before we move on to the tea break, our director, Dr. Nandita Krishna, will honor Dr. V.N. Prabhakar. We will now have a tea break and resume back in 10 minutes sharp.